It was one of those nights when silence felt heavier than sound. When the ticking clock on my wall echoed like a reminder that I was running out of something I couldn't name. I had spent the last 3 years in a house that no longer felt like home. Sleeping on one side of a bed too big for one person, waking up to the emptiness where Lauder used to live. The faint scent of her perfume still lingered on the pillow she left behind. The woman who's promised forever, but didn't stay long enough to mean it. That night, I sat by the window, staring into the cold rain that pressed against the glass, wondering how many more nights I could survive pretending I was okay. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to hear might just remind you that love doesn't always come the way we expect. But when it does, it changes everything. I first met her 6 months ago. Her name was Maya, and she came into my life like a quiet storm. I didn't notice her at first. She was just another volunteer at the local shelter where I spent my evenings fixing broken cages and mending fences. I went there to keep busy, to distract myself from the silence that waited for me at home. She was different from everyone else. She didn't talk much, but her eyes carried 1,000 unshed tears. I could tell she had known pain, maybe even more than I had. It started with small things. She would bring coffee for everyone, but always hand mine last. With a shy half-smile that never quite reached her eyes, some days she'd hum quietly while sweeping the shelter floor. And I'd catch myself listening, trying to memorize the tune. Over time, our conversations stretched longer, from simple greetings to stories about broken dreams, lost people, and the fragile beauty of hope. She told me she used to be an artist, that she stopped painting after her fiancé passed away in a car accident 2 years ago. I didn't ask for tales. I just listened. Maybe that was all she needed. Someone to sit beside her without asking her to move on too quickly. One evening it began to rain heavily. The shelter roof leaked in places, so I stayed back late to fix it. Maya stayed too, holding a flashlight while I worked. The rain outside grew louder, the wind colder, and when Thepor went out, we sat together in the dim glow of her phone light, sharing only old sandwich and silence. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being understood without words. That night, when we finally stepped outside, she hesitated before running to her car. Her hair clung to her face, rainwater trickling down her cheeks like silver lines. Then she turned and said softly, "You look like someone who hasn't let go yet." I didn't know what to say. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Neither have I." Then she drove away, leaving me standing in the rain, wondering why that simple sentence felt like the beginning of something I didn't know I needed. Over the following weeks, she became a part of my routine. Some days she'd text to ask how the shelter animals were doing. Other days she'd show up with paint cans, helping me color the one walls with soft blues and warm yellows. Slowly, life returned to that place and maybe to me too. She painted a smell mural on one wall, 2 hands reaching toward each other but not quite touching. She said it represented almost love. I didn't ask what she meant, but deep down I felt she was painting both of us. Then came the night she showed up at my door. It was late, maybe close to midnight. I heard a knock, soft but desperate. When I opened the door, Maya stood there drenched, clutching a small bag. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. She didn't speak at first, and when she finally did, her voice cracked. "I can't go back there," she said. "Not tonight." I stepped aside. She walked in, dripping water on the wooden floor. I handed her a towel and she sank onto the couch, hugging herself. After a long silence, she whispered, "I thought I was doing better, but every time it rains, I see his car. I hear the crash, I smell the smoke." Her voice broke completely and she buried her face in her hands. I didn't know how to comfort her, so I did the only thing I could. I sat beside her and let her cry. Hours passed before she finally looked at me with tired eyes and asked, "Is there space left in your bed?" For a moment it froze. The question hung in the air like a confession. It wasn't about the bed, it was about belonging. About finding a corner in someone's life where you could finally rest without fear. I nodded quietly and said, "What if you said you wanted to stay forever?" Her tears stopped. She looked at me, startled, then smiled, a fragile, uncertain smile that seemed to hold both hope and fear. I led her to the room. She curled up on the far edge of the bed, still shaking while I lay beside her, not touching, not speaking. We just listened to their rain. Two broken people trying to believe that healing was possible. That night, for the first time in years, I didn't dream of my past. Days turned into weeks. She started staying over more often. Sometimes because Shekel didn't sleep, sometimes because she didn't want to be alone. The house, once silent and heavy, began to feel alive again. She'd cook breakfast, humming under her breath, teasing me about my terrible coffee. We laughed at the smallest things. A burnt toast, a spilled drink, a dog that refused to stop barking outside the window. It felt like a new beginning, like life had quietly returned while I wasn't looking, but healing isn't a straight line. Some mornings I'd wake up and find her staring at the wall, lost in a memory. Other times she'd vanish for a couple of days without saying a word, leaving me replaying every conversation, wondering if I had unknowingly hurt her. I learned patience. I learned that loving someone isn't about repairing them like they're broken machinery. It's about standing beside them as they piece themselves back together. Quietly, at their own pace, one evening, we returned to the shelter. A fresh litter of puppies had been brought in, left abandoned near the highway. Maya picked up one, a tiny brown pup with shaky paws and frightened eyes. For the first time, I watched her smile without the usual shadow hidden behind it. She whispered, almost like she was afraid the moment would shatter. "You know, maybe broken things don't need to be discarded. Maybe they just need somewhere to belong." It took me a while to understand she wasn't only talking about the puppy. Months drifted by. We painted the house side by side, splashing the walls with colors that somehow reflected pieces of both of us, her warmth, my steadiness. Slowly she began painting again. Small canvases at first. Soft sunsets, delicate flowers, tiny fragments of hope. Every now and then I'd wake up to find a new painting on my knitstand, always marked with a little heart and a single word, "Stay." Then one night, everything shifted. I came home and found her missing. No note, no message. Just silence. Her clothes were still hanging in the closet. Her brushes were still in the jar. Her paintings still lined the hallway. But she wasn't there. Fear wrapped around my chest like a fist. I called the shelter, her friends, anyone who might have seen her. No one knew where she'd gone. For 3 days, I barely slept, barely tasted food. Wandering through the city, as if the world had turned foggy without her in it. On the 4th night, I finally found her. She was sitting beside the river where we used to walk. Knees pulled close, fingers clutching a small wooden box. When she noticed me, she gave a weak smile and murmured, "I went to say goodbye to him." I needed that. I sat next to her in silence as she opened the box. Inside was a ring, her late fiancé's. She held it as if she were holding a memory. Then, with trembling hands, she placed it into the water. We watched the ring glimmer once under the moonlight, before the river swallowed it whole. Tears filled her eyes. But they weren't the heavy, sorrow-drenched tears I had seen in the past. These were soft, gentle, tears of release, of letting go. That night, when we finally went home, she walked into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed and asked quietly, "Do you still mean it? About forever?" I looked at her, the woman who had turned a lonely, silent house into something alive, something warm. The woman who taught me that hearts could break and still beat again, and I said, "More than I ever have." Her tears slipped into a smile as she leaned into me. Outside, the rain began again, soft and light, like the sky was blessing us. The next morning, I woke with her curled against me, her hand resting gently on my chest. Sunlight draped across her face, peaceful and golden. And for a moment, the world felt perfectly aligned. That was when I understood, love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it curls beside you quietly, waiting for you to notice that you've made room for it without even realizing. Months later, we opened a small art cafe near the shelter. She painted. I brewed coffee. People visited not just for the drinks, but for the feeling, the warmth that lingered in the air like something sacred. On one wall hung her mural, two hands finally meeting, no longer reaching through empty space. She titled it Forever Found. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in love that mends what life once broke, in souls finding their way back to peace, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support keeps these stories alive, reminding the world that beginnings are always possible. And before this story closes, I want to ask you, have you ever met someone who made your heart feel like home again? Tell your story in the comments. Maybe your words will give someone else the courage to believe again, because the most beautiful love stories rarely begin with, I love you. They often begin with a simple, quiet question. Is there space left in your bed? And if someone ever asks you that, may your answer always be, only if you promise to stay forever.